broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Are you ready for AWIC TV Experience It with Anointed Women in Christ? Join us this Sunday with our special guest, Pastor Margo Gross, to talk about her award-winning book, The Push, with your host, Latricia C. Bailey. And as always, her co-host, Minister Chris Allen, Tammy A. Phillips, Lynette McCullum, and Harriet V. Bennett. Experience it, AWIC TV, with real women, discussing real issues and giving real answers. We are AWIC. Join in the conversation.
Welcome to AWIC TV Experience It. I'm your host, Latricia C. Bailey, and we are back again for another edition of AWIC TV. Okay, so y'all liven up with me, send in your comments and your questions and your feedback, because we got a special guest here today. We have Pastor Margo Gross from Remnant of Hope International Church, all the way in Waldorf, Maryland, right? Prince Frederick, Maryland. All right. And she's also the Indie Award-winning author of Push. See the book right here? You guys see her push? Push. And so we're going to talk about that and also her other ministry, Margo Medina Ministries.
Yes.
You got a lot going on.
Yes,
That's
God
a
is
good
good.
thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So stay with us. We're going to open up in prayer, and then we're going to talk with her and talk with you all about the subject of push. Father God, we do bless you. We thank you for this atmosphere. We thank you for allowing us to just be able to be reminded that it is you and because of you that we move and breathe and have our being. So, Father God, we pray right now for a great show, Father God, that we will edify you and allow you to be able to minister through us to reach your people, Lord. I thank you that they will be encouraged to push and draw closer to you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So we are the ladies at AWIC. We have Minister Chris Allen and Tammy Phillips and Lynette McCullum and Harriet E. Bennett. And so we're going to go ahead into the show because I know that we have a lot to cover. And so the first thing I want to ask you is, are you pushy?
Yes. Yes, I am pushing. I'm always pushing. I think we as, not just pastors, but we as women have to always push. There's always some obstacle. There's always some unforeseen circumstance that you don't know you're going to have to deal with, that you have to push through. And that was the whole reason for creating the push, was because we need daily empowerment. It can't be something we wait till Sunday to get or to Bible study on whatever night of the week we have it. It has to really be a daily thing where you're feeding your soul and your spirit. And so for me, pushing is not just about the action of doing the things that God has called me to do, but it's also the action of preparing the temple for what he's called you to do. Because you can have different opportunities and doors open for you, but if you're not prepared for them, not just with degrees and things like that, but if you're not mentally and emotionally stable, then you walk into those things that God has maybe blessed you with, and unfortunately you can't sustain it with what you have. So we have to constantly push ourselves to invest in us, whether it be through devotions or Bible studies or whatever it is, so that when it's time, when somebody needs something from you, you have already planted something on the inside they can pull from.
That's awesome. I like that. Yeah, that is powerful. So who was your target audience for this?
Well, I try to say that my target audience is everybody.
Right.
All of us want to believe that. But the truth of the matter is, even when I'm not trying, women always seem to be, sort of the group that I minister to, usually from about 20 to 60. The ages 20 to 60, mainly because in some ways I'm an old soul. I was raised by a mixture of my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. Right. And so all of them in some way have planted something inside of me. It comes out every now and then. But also because I am an observer. I like watching people. You know, I like seeing how different people handle different problems. And so as I wrote the push, you know, I had a lot of different people in mind as I came up with it. But it's also full of just different strategies that have helped me navigate various situations that it doesn't matter how old you are as a woman.
Right.
You have to deal with haters. You know, you have to deal with people that tell you can't. You know, and sometimes that person is you.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter what age you are. Most of us deal with some level of self-doubt. And then there are a lot of women who don't have fathers. So you never got that voice to tell you you are awesome, you are wonderful, or that unconditional love. And so a lot of us are learning how to love ourselves again or love us at all, you know. And so whenever I put pen to paper, it always becomes, what would I want to hear when I was going through? What do I wish someone would have said to me? So in those times where I don't feel supported, I use that as motivation to write about what would I have wanted to hear had I had a voice. You know.
We don't want to take for granted that our audience knows, but can you tell us PUSH is an acronym?
No, it's not actually.
Okay.
It's just the push. Because I know that everybody knows the acronym pray until something happens. But that really wasn't the notion behind push. Believe it or not, as I recalled how, you know, I get asked the question, how did you accomplish so many things? And even at a younger age, that was always asked of me. At the young age I was, how was I doing it? I used to be a young pastor. I'm getting old now. So nobody refers to me as that. For a long time, I was the person people invited to like the youth ministry stuff. I don't get invited to none of that. So I'm dealing with that on the inside. But when I recalled how different things were achieved, it was always a very important part where I could say at that moment in time I had a choice. Either I was going to quit or I was just going to push through. And so as I started thinking about that, I was like, how many people are out there who are at that same crossroads where either they're going to push or they're going to go through? I mean, you know, either they're going to push or they're going to quit. You know, it's so funny, even my call to be a pastor, it was really either be a pastor or stop going to church. Like, as crazy as that sounds, that's where I was, because it was either you're going to do what God has called you to do or just stop because you're not going to be obedient. So it was a very, it's always been a very, it's either this or this with me. So at those times in my life, again, where, you know, I just felt like I wanted to quit, it was always this still small voice that said, you can't. Somebody's watching. It's bigger than you. This is not about you. You know, your purpose is so much larger than how you feel in this moment. You can't let your emotions win. It was always those pushes that came through from the Word of God. So I wanted to share that with people.
I appreciate that. Who were some of your haters?
Oh gosh, my haters. My biggest one was myself. I definitely was a self-doubter. I still struggle, but now I recognize that it's a tool of the enemy, so I combat it differently. I used to take it personal, like it was me, something wrong with me. But now I realize that's a tool he uses for people who are encouragers. He has to discourage you, so then you can empower and encourage all the people that need to hear your voice. So what better way to do it than get you to operate in self-doubt so you don't jump out there, so you don't step out there and pursue. And so for me, once I realized that was his trick, it was like, oh no, we not doing that.
Vaseline, there's a Vaseline.
We're going to fight. You know what I mean? We're not going to do that. But for me, I really was probably my biggest hater. And then, you know, being a woman in ministry is not easy. You know, you would think it's, you know, 2019, we've moved on. But it's still, you know, some people that don't want to see women preach, you know. There's still people that don't want to see women definitely pastor. You know, a lot of them are really cool with you coming to that church to do your little sermon. You know, do your little thing. That's what I tell you.
On Women's Day.
On Women's Day. But they really are not interested in announcing you as pastor. You know, I still get people that change the title to something else. And you know what? At the end of the day, I've learned that I don't care what you call me. I'm on assignment, and I'm going to do my assignment because with or without the title, we do our assignment.
The message is still the same.
Yeah, and so, you know, I've had some of that. And then, of course, there's an occasional woman or two, you know, that don't always like you. You know, sometimes I don't understand why, though. Sometimes I'm like, I ain't do nothing to you. Like, I got some people that should not like me. Like, I might have made some mistakes, but, you know, occasionally you deal with those things, too. But I would say, ultimately, when I learned to understand who I was and my purpose and who God had assigned me to, that stuff stopped mattering as much, you know, about what naysayers said. Because one of the things my husband always tells me, my husband is a powerful man of God, but he doesn't always realize it. He's not a title person, you know, but he really does a lot to support me. And one of the things he always says is check the source. When someone says something to you, offends you, hates on you, talks bad about you, check the source. So if you're hating on, you know, my book, your little book, you know, you wrote a little book, you know, everybody writes books. I like your little book. You know, you check the source. Have they ever written anything, a sentence, a paragraph? And if they haven't, then why are you valuing what they say and allowing that seed to be planted? So now I have to learn to reject that stuff because I know that for me, the words that people speak over me matter. So I have to tell myself, I don't care what the haters say. I don't care. And sometimes the hater is me. I don't care what you say. I know what God said, and I have to talk back to myself. And so that's why there are declarations in the book, because I think we need to do that. We need to start talking. You know, if I always say if the enemy was a physical person, we'd be snapping fingers and snapping necks and pulling stuff out the air and doing all of that. But oftentimes when it's not a physical person and it's a spirit, we don't attack it the same way. And, you know, so I've learned through declaring some things, through reflecting. I'm a big reflector, and doing some of those things that I mentioned in the book to defeat those kind of things. But I definitely had some haters. That comes with the territory.
Tell us about day 25.
Oh my goodness, day 25. I gotta look at it. Oh gosh. So this is about when God gives you a vision that's bigger than your reality, and it talks about Abraham had no seed, but God called him to be the father of nations. So it's just the thought that sometimes when God asks you to step out into your purpose, you don't even have all the materials, you know. But it makes me reflect on another page. I also talk about the fact that Jesus was at a wedding and turned water into wine with no grapes. He doesn't need our materials. Come on. He doesn't need your support system you think you need. He doesn't need you to have, you know, we think before we do something nice like this, we got to buy mics, we got to do. He don't need you to collect all that stuff. He just needs you to say yes and start working in your purpose. And so when Abraham was called the father of many nations, his wife couldn't even have children. And it's almost, I know for me, sometimes I've looked at God like, are you kidding me? Is this really what you're going to ask me to do right now? You know, but all the time he's always prepping us to be blessed. He's always, you know, I like to tell people, he's always your biggest fan. He's rooting for you. He's always trying to favor you. He's trying to find a way to bless you. And if you approach God through that, when he requires something of you, like calling you a father of many nations, then you see differently, because if you called me that, even if I don't see it in my now, I know I'm going to see it in my next.
Come on now.
So only believe.
How long have you been pastoring?
Oh, goodness. So I was the associate pastor of a church for 7 years. And then when I broke out to start my own ministry, I pastored for 3. So I've been at my local ministry for only 3 years. We're still toddlers is what I like to call it. But what I love about our ministry is it really is a group of people who love God. And some of which have been hurt, but we have galvanized together to change how people see church, because that has not become, that's not a good name anymore, you know, unfortunately. And so we're trying to rebrand church and what that means.
Before we go any further, we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the church and some of the projects that you all do.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Come back.
Yeah, come back. Don't you move. Stay tuned with AWIC TV.
To expand your business, increase your brand awareness with over 1.2 million viewers. Get your book on the bestsellers list. Broaden your reach with 175 million reached on Fire Stick and Roku. Do you need more exposure for your event to get more to register? Then advertise on AWIC TV. Don't know where to start? We also offer video ad development services. You can find more information at anointedwomeninChrist.com. It could be the best business decision you ever make.
Welcome back to AWIC TV. Oh, we keep it real. I was sweating, y'all. I had to get some tissue. I'm sorry. So, anyways, we are having fun here with Pastor Margo.
Yes, we are.
And before we went to the break, we were talking about a church. Her church, I was just going to say, you could talk a little bit more about your church, but I love the laundry project. Tell us about that.
Thank you.
I love that.
So our church does what's called a laundromat takeover, where we go into the local laundromats and we basically pay for all of the washing and drying. And some of our members even help with folding and putting it in the car. Like, really all you have to do is bring your clothes. And we have always tried to pray for witty ways and clever ways to do ministry, because, you know, some things become redundant. So all churches are doing Thanksgiving baskets, but then there are times between the holidays where people really need help and support. And the other thing that, you know, sometimes becomes a burden for churches is trying to figure out who's worthy and who's not. You know, that's a difficult thing to have that application come in and you're trying to decide who should get the money and who shouldn't. So one of the ways that we wanted to combat that, because who are we to decide who needs God's help the most? So one of the ways we decided to combat that is just bless the whole community and not care whether you have a need or not. So on those days, you know, we go live on Facebook and tell people that they can come, but more often than not, we get the people who genuinely are washing their clothes that day. And sometimes we're met with people who say, well, I don't need it. And we say, this isn't about need. This is about demonstrating the love of Jesus Christ, his compassion, his love for people. And they get it, you know. And there are some that don't want the help. There are some that bless us, you know, that'll say, I like what you're doing. You know, here's an offering. But we've watched tears come to people's eyes as they talked about how it was really a choice between laundry or medicine, or laundry and food. And those of us who live in a house with wash machines and dryers, we take that for granted. But for some families, it's well over $100 to wash clothes. And yeah, it is. And as a student who grew up the dirty girl in the class, sat in the back, didn't smell good, and had that testimony, like really not the popular kid for that reason, and not having parents at home who could do those kind of things, I was left to my own. And I just remember as a kid how good I felt when I showed up for school with clean clothes on. Like, we all know when you got to go through that laundry pile and figure it out, it's you smelling it, you trying to figure out. And I just said I didn't want anybody to ever feel that, to feel that they were walking out the house without clean undergarments and garments on. And it's a very personal thing, but it has been so impactful. We are trying on our next laundromat takeover to do 10 laundromats at the same time. It will be our largest laundromat takeover to date. But we are excited, and when you look at how much it costs versus how much of an impact it makes, it's unparalleled. Like, you can't even compare the two.
How do you organize that?
Very easily. We all go out. Different church members bring in donations of laundry supplies. The church pretty much covers the quarters. Some of the members do give quarters during the week if they have extras, but pretty much the church covers anything that's not covered. And we just get large amounts of quarters from our bank, and we split it up over the 2 locations along with the laundry supplies. And I'm usually on the phone with everybody looking at how much do we have left. Do I need to run to Walmart? And we're going back and forth to Walmart if necessary. And we're just, everybody who walks in, we just start putting quarters in. And some people are like, wait, what are you doing? And we're like, today is free laundry day. And they're like, what? You know, and the back part to it that honestly, when God gave me the vision to do it, that I did not see was the fact that we're also blessing that business. I didn't see that at first. Yes, because now people are able to wash more clothes, which means they're making more money as a result. So of course they're like, come on, when y'all coming, please come back. So it's not really a huge organizational effort other than deciding the date and the time and getting quarters. Like, it's that simple. I don't think any of us feel bad after we've done it or like exhausted. It's never a chore. Everybody wants to be there.
Wonderful. Do they ask you why you're doing it?
Yes, always.
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 Which is the whole point of doing it.
Why? And the funny thing is, you know, I grew up old school church where if we were doing something, it was either to get you to come to the church, to get you to pay a tithe and offering in the end, or to get your soul saved, all of which are very important. And we have experienced salvation at these events where we've been able to lead people to Christ. But for me, I need them to know that he loved them first.
Yes.
That unconditional love.
And
This is our show from last. This is our show
and
from
so
last week.
that is a part of the why, is just to get you to understand that he loves you first. Yes. We just want you to feel loved first. And that is the purpose and the work of the church. Yes. You know, wherever Jesus went ministering, he always ministered through love. In fact, he loved them so much that when he got to a place to preach and their need for food wasn't met, he said, feed them first before I feed them the spiritual food. And so many of us have it twisted. We want people to come to our church, but we don't go. And the Great Commission says, go ye.
Yes.
Go ye.
Therefore, right? Yes. So it's not come ye. Therefore, it's go ye. So if those of us who know the gospel and love Jesus aren't going, then we don't deserve to get anybody. We don't deserve to recruit anybody to the Lord. Because if they see his love first, right? Not the religious part, not what you need to wear, not what you need to buy, but his love first. And I believe that that love is powerful and will change them. So they do ask why.
Yeah, that was our
being
topic.
the church in action, meeting people,
Matthew
and not
25.
beating them over the head with
Right,
the Bible. Well, you're not going to get this turkey till you come to our program.
Right.
You know, that kind of crazy.
Yeah, because if you really want to bless people,
bless
why does it matter if they go to your church or not? Why does it matter if they don't get a turkey? You know, that's another thing. You got churches saying, well, did you take something from that church? You shouldn't have been at the laundromat. If your member got a need, why you care who's meeting it? And we should all be working together because ultimately we're one body.
Exactly.
So why cut off your nose to spite your face? That's crazy.
Come on now. Come on now.
I love that. I love it.
It's true.
When you said that, I thought about the different cults that benefit from our being so fixated about getting people to come to the church. So what they'll do is, you don't have to worry about it. They will meet the need. And they'll ask, well, where's the church? Well, they're not here. No problem. We'll take care of it. We have a ministry in South Africa, and one of the pastors was telling us that the difficulty he has is that how the cults will come and bring blankets and food and water and all the things that the people need, and they won't even say anything about their ministry, and then later on they'll come back and talk about their church and the things that they're doing, and that's how they're drawing them because the church is not responding.
Well, I think about myself. If I'm hungry, I'm not hearing you.
Thank you.
When that stomach is hitting that back,
is growling louder
if you are sick in your body and somebody is trying to tell you a whole bunch of stuff, can you help me get healed first? And sometimes we put the cart before the horse. You know, we're not doing it in the right order. Let people establish relationship with God first, and then show them all the rules, and God will clean up all of that stuff. But in the beginning, it needs to be about relationship. It needs to be about getting them connected. It needs to be about meeting those needs, because if I'm hungry, I don't even hear you. You know, we have people that are so in the beds of depression and going through so much anxiety, they scared to come to church. They're scared to come out of their bed. So how are you going to ever reach them? And they're the ones that need it the most.
Right.
We got to go.
You'll meet them at the laundromat.
Yes, that's what we need them at.
So the conversation that you have with your members and something, just prepare them for that.
Yes.
What are you doing to do that?
So we go through at our church, we have a lot of leadership training and things of that nature. But the other piece to it is, when you as a pastor or any person in leadership, when you're sharing your vision for anything, it's very important that you start with what the heart does, not what the hand does, right? Amen. So oftentimes when we are establishing vision and trying to pour out vision to people, we start with, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the laundromat. Y'all going to stand at the door. We're going to have the quarters. Right. But if you start with just the hand of it, what your hands are going to do, they miss the whole point. Yeah. So you start with the heart. And from the beginning, we've started with what our heart should look like as a church for God's people. That means that if somebody walk in here looking like they just left off the stripper pole, you better hug them and love on that sister like she got on the best suit you've ever seen in your life. If someone comes in and they look like, you know, they're from a whole nother religion, you better love on them, because if we don't do it, and so we lose a soul. And so that foundation has been set through our Bible study, through our leadership meetings, we've had several book studies within our church, from Complaint Free Life to Fervent. So through those channels, I try to articulate that vision to love on people. And I'm telling you, it was phenomenal. Saturday, we just had our first women's conference. No plugging, but we just had our first women's conference, Crown. And at that conference, I watched our women act in the way that we have shared. We wanted to love people, and it just blessed my heart because I didn't have to say it. They knew. they served all the women their bags first, and then if there was something left, they took something from them for themselves. And watching them do small things like that shows that the vision is being casted. They get it. They're seeing Jesus differently. Some of them are breaking away from them old traditions and the old way that they did church to come to the reality that Jesus really has called us all to serve, not just ministers, not just that.
Serve.
But we are now looking to do 2 additional things. We are looking for like an ice cream truck.
Oh.
Because we want to convert that into the Hope Hub, which is basically a mobile way that we can deliver if there's a storm in a place. We want to be able to pull out with toilet paper, all of the necessities on the truck. We want to be able to visit the homeless, have sandwiches, all of that on the truck. We want to also have our laundry supplies on there and be able to roll into neighborhoods that are in need and people be able to shop on the truck without paying anything. So we want to do that, and we also want to do a prescription takeover. We found that some of our elderly don't have the prescriptions.
Wow.
We would love to be able to pay for those. We want to do a grocery store and gas stations because we want to meet the needs of our community. And I say to our church, if we were to uproot from here and leave and nobody in the community noticed, then we haven't done our job.
Wow.
We haven't done our job.
That is so true. You're not a cookie cutter church at all.
No, and I love it because that's why I didn't want to do it.
Right.
In the beginning, I was like, I don't want to do it. This church is on every block, and that's what we're going to do. I don't want to do it. But this is not, God said, if you don't want to pastor, it's because you haven't created the church that you would join.
Come on now.
Create the kind of church you would join. If you're not finding one, if you got something to say about all the churches, you do it then. You know, you do it. Create it. Let's go.
We got one more commercial break to go to. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You had a question. We're going to go to a commercial break because there's another side of Pastor Margo you want to talk about.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, old school.
Old school.
Okay. We'll be back after this commercial break. Stay with us. Stay with us. Don't go away. And send in your comments if you have comments, questions, feedback. Margo Gross, The Push. Welcome back to AWIC TV. We're having a good time up here. We have Pastor Margo Gross up here, and we are talking about The Push, her book. It's a new book that's been out for about almost a year now.
Yes.
Almost a
I probably
year.
should have did an anniversary something.
Yeah. So tell them before we go into this question, tell them where they can get your book.
Oh, you can get my book on Amazon if you put in The Push, Margo M. Gross. It will take you right to Amazon to do it. Or you can simply cash app $25 to $ Margo Gross, and I will mail that to you with the autographed signature.
All right. Did you have a
Right
question
to the point.
before?
I did.
You remember it?
But when we started talking about other things during the
Oh,
break,
yeah.
I want to go.
Well, we want to talk. I said we want to go old school. We're going to talk about Margo, Pastor Margo, back in the day, Margo.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about you back in the day. I know few
So
things.
Margo back in the day was a party girl, you know, and specifically I love the go-go, honey. I love the little red essence and the little, you know, go-go. And it was funny because when I first gave my life to Christ, I was still trying to do that, and I looked ridiculous. You know, when you trying to still do Jesus and go-go at the same time, and you're at the club trying to prove I ain't that holy, watch me, I can still drop it, you know. It was ridiculous. And so it was funny. For a long time, I tried doing both. You know, I would go to church on Sunday, be convicted, but then be right back, you know, doing a lot of things. And I wish it was just the go-go. And if I didn't have my job now, I would tell tell all the nooks and crannies of that testimony, but I'm a vice principal, so we have standards. And I can't tell the whole thing, but I went to college. You know, I did manage to make it into college, and during that time in college, I did look for love in all the wrong places. You know, I did not grow up having a father, so you know, I was looking for somebody to say that I was pretty and that I was cute. Now I can say that to myself, but back then that was difficult, and so I went through that stage. But love to dance. I still love to dance. You know, and anytime you invite me and my husband to a wedding, we show off, because that's the only chance we get to dance. But I definitely was, you know, a go-go girl, and I could hear God calling me, and I still tried to do what I was doing, you know, and I remember his voice very, you know, clearly. And then when I would go to church, a lot of times I wouldn't even shower. It was like straight from the club on Saturday.
Right.
We be saying jeans and stuff, and I used to try to have like a t-shirt or something I could put, because you know I had the jeans on that you had to lay down and zipping up. I was wearing the ones you had to lay down and zipping them things up. You had to have a friend with a hanger. You had to take a hanger and try to pull it. It was really serious. And so, you know, I did that, and of course, you know, I faced some scrutiny from the women of the church, like, you got to change what you got on. I was like, can I get to know Jesus first?
Right.
But, you know,
that's such a deterrent.
Because first of all, you got to get their hearts
Yeah.
right. They got to get some word in them. You know, I remember when I first started going to church and singing praise and worship, and the baby doll dresses were out. But before then, I would get you need to wear something else. You need to pull your skirt down. Well, I wore it just because they were saying something.
Oh, Lord. Now I feel free to share what happened to me at a
the
wedding.
conviction came from the Holy Spirit, because I had got enough word in me.
Yes.
So we got to let
the
people
word
get enough
do
word in them.
Let the word.
God deals with us from the inside
That's
out,
right.
not from
Right.
the outside in.
And that's what's wrong, though, because what we've done is we've fallen in love with the image of being right when we're not right.
Come on now,
So
say that again.
we're okay with being dressed up as long as you look the part,
Right.
but we're not teaching people to be the part. So
Right.
now we got a whole bunch of women in church. Yeah, your skirt's long, but you lifting it for everybody. So what difference does that make? I'm sorry, can I say that?
Yes, you can.
So it's, you know, it's not really that beneficial
Right.
if you ain't doing what's, you know, if you ain't fixing what's on the inside. Who cares what?
And
you know, that
skipping
don't make
all
much
over
sense.
the fact, skipping all over the fact that they're in church.
Yeah.
Yes.
Come on,
Yeah.
what credit do I get for
Yeah.
being here?
Yeah.
Something is going to slip through. What did the Bible tells us? The Lord said His word would not return unto Him.
That's
void.
right.
So why are you all up in His stuff?
That's right.
Let Him.
That's
And
right.
he's patient. I had a friend who made it clear she was not getting baptized. She was a new Christian. She said, but I spend too much money on my hair. So this is not going to happen. I'm not getting baptized. And the people were so kind. They said, oh, okay. They did not bother her. They did not bother her. And then one day, she got convicted, and all on her own, she got baptized. But it was not because the women were at her.
That's right.
It was because she kept coming to church.
And Chris mentioned it. Sometimes the offense is what keeps us from doing it.
Right.
Now you know, I have on my skirt. Now you say something. Now I'm offended by what you said. So even if I was going to change, I don't want to change because of what you said.
Right.
I remember they had a whole women's ministry meeting about me and my jeans.
Oh my goodness.
And they were talking about wardrobe, and I said, I think some of y'all, if y'all was shaped right, you would wear it too. I wasn't all the way done. I wasn't finished. So I was ready. I wasn't all the way done.
That was the truth.
They shouldn't have came for me, because I wasn't done. I felt like you got what you asked for.
Oh, well.
I said, if y'all was built like this, y'all had these parasuit on too.
But that's the truth. A lot of them are, you know, older women who used to wear.
Yes,
Because
honey.
mini
can't
skirts
no
and stuff
more.
didn't come out when we started coming.
Hot
They were
pants
back
were
out
back.
in the 50s.
Come on
She
now.
said hot pants.
Hot pants.
Yes.
They were
You said hot pants.
back in the day.
You better hot pants it,
So
honey.
they just made because they can't wear it anymore.
I could. I was good back then.
I was born in 76. I don't know nothing about no. She said, have mercy. I was born yesterday.
And
They
my
tell me
dad
hot
was telling me, because I had on a pair in '76. Yes,
And them boots.
and the boots and the hot pants. He said, "Oh no, you're not gonna do that."
And they wore real minis. They wore
They were-
micro
yeah.
minis.
Micro
And nobody
You
told
couldn't
them to
bend
put them
over
down.
for
You
real.
couldn't do anything.
Absolutely right.
Sneeze, everything we hanging out.
Right.
But I've even been. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm listening. But I've been in a situation where I heard a male in the church tell a young lady that what she had on was inappropriate. Now, that to me, I think we may have talked about that on one of the shows about that incident.
Yeah.
And
That's a dangerous territory. I think he should have assigned that to
somebody else.
And he should have had his wife
That's right.
do it.
That's right.
I mean, if that's an issue, that yes, he was married and his wife was in the church.
That's
You
right.
have to have a relationship with people.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to be led by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Just don't be walking up.
This is
you
my
have to be
rule.
careful.
This is my rule.
Relationship alone.
When I was a classroom teacher, I had a little boy in my classroom, and he had a father who wasn't in his life. And when I called the mom to tell the mom that he had been misbehaving, she said, "Ma'am, I'm sick of it. You need to call his dad." So I called his dad. His dad came up to the school with the belt. You know, he was ready to spank him. I'm going somewhere with this. So he took him to the bathroom and spanked him. And when he came back, the little boy was really worked up. And I kept saying, "What's wrong with you? You know, why are you so worked up?" Like, I understood him crying initially, but it was like all day he was crying. So at the end of the day, I was like, "Why are you still crying? You okay?" And he was like, I don't even know him. That was his third time meeting his father. And his father was coming to spank him. And you know what I came to the conclusion of? This is when God started revealing to me, even with pastors, discipline without relationship is abuse.
Yeah.
You can't go disciplining people you don't know.
Wow.
You know, the word says that pastors' call is to feed the sheep. You feed them, you feed them, you feed them, and you make them hungry to be fed. But you can't go abusing sheep and shearing sheep when they haven't even grown the fur yet, because you haven't taught nothing. So if you're not willing to feed them, how are you willing to fleece them? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yes, that's a good
Because it
point.
seems like when you do that,
Yeah.
and the person develops some kind of a immunity to whatever it is, and you lose every time you do that, you lose a little bit more of that person.
That's right.
And it's harder to reach, if ever, and I don't want to say it, but they become, you know, like serial killers or what. I mean, you don't know how that's coming out. I mean, I know that might be extreme, but they become people who are never people with a personality. That's
Break their
something you can
spirit.
work with, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
And that's where that
interrupted your
church
question.
That church hurt comes in.
That's right.
When you hurt people, and a lot of times it's your opinion. You don't know where that person's coming from, what they're dealing
Exactly.
with.
That's right.
What is appropriate. You know, what is church clothes?
And what if it's
all you
have?
It's what we've made up.
That's right.
So if I'm coming off the stripper pole, I don't have church clothes. I got stripper clothes. So you mean to tell me I can't come in here and get what I need? So I can get off the pole?
And very few people are willing to say, "Hey sis, I want to take you shopping with me." Where are those people? Because I don't never hear them talking.
Right.
All
They'll
right.
talk about your clothes.
Where are
but
those
they won't
people
shop.
that
You
are
know why
saying,
you don't hear
"You
them
know what,
talking?
let's go
Because
shopping with me."
They're actually doing it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it in front of other
Yeah.
people.
But what I'm saying basically is that I feel like sometimes we focus on that, but we need to be stepping up to meet the need
Yes.
rather than discussing why people are the way they are. You know what I mean? We all, for such was some of us.
Right.
And some of us are entering church every Sunday covering a whole bunch of foolishness that people can't see to preach about, but it's there.
So, Margo, I'm just curious, when you were in that position where, like you said, they had a meeting about your clothing, which is wild, but how did that work out for you in terms of being able to stand your ground or to stay in the church? Were you ready to leave after that?
No,
and go find something
I
else?
wasn't ready to leave. Probably because I've always been able to separate some of the stuff people do from what I think their heart is. I really do think they were genuinely trying to help me. They just didn't know how to do it. But what I'm grateful for is that experience, because it informs me as a pastor. That's what we're
right.
not going to do.
What not
you
to
know,
do.
and sometimes you learn a lot from what people do to hurt you of what not to do to the next person. You know.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how was it juggling being a pastor and your mom and your educator and all the different things you do and doing the devotional?
There is no juggling. That's what
Yeah.
I tell people all the time. You can't. You have to prioritize. You know, on certain days, because of the nature of what I'm doing, other things become priority. But to be honest, you know, I hate to give my husband all these plugs because his head is just going to be so.
Give him his props.
Oh, God. I'm going to hear about it. Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
We'll give you equal time. We'll give you equal time. You come on the
He can
show.
call in, you know.
The reason why, and you know, I just have to say it, I've said it a million times, and I know people might get sick of it, but the reason why I'm able to do what I do is for two reasons. One, I have an incredible husband who doesn't believe in gender roles. So when I get home, he'll have the week's food cooked this week when I get there. You know, he doesn't have a problem helping around the house. He'll pick up the girls. He'll, you know, drop them off. He's just that dude. Like, you know, he doesn't mind having a powerful wife, which I appreciate, which makes him even more attractive.
All right,
Yes, but he doesn't mind that, and he supports me in ways that people don't always see, you know, especially in my challenges concerning my abilities, always questioning that. And he's always able to recollect something that I should be using to encourage me that I need to keep going. And he is that voice, you know, sometimes a hard voice, because my husband is also the one to say, but didn't Jesus say love everybody and don't be a respecter of person? So you need to embrace that, sister, you know. And so those kind of words sometimes hurt, or he'll say, what you say on Sunday?
Oh, Lord.
You said that it had to happen, right? So even in our tragedies, it had to happen because it helps you, right? So he'll bring those things back up. So I appreciate him for that. And I could not do what I do without the running around he does. And then my mom, you know, my mom and my father-in-law, they both run the girls back and forth. I call them my personal Ubers. So they take the girls sometimes to school. And if case people didn't know, I have 2 teenage children that play sports. And so one plays basketball and volleyball, and the other one plays volleyball. They play both their school teams and travel teams. So the schedule is not a game. And I'm committed to being there. I believe in family first. So there are times that I will, cancel Bible study if there's no one else to do it. If my children are playing in a championship game, I am at the game. And if somebody else can step in, great. But if they can't, I'm sorry. I'm going to be at the game, because churches open and close every day, but my kids are my lifetime, you know. And so that's very important to me. So it's really about prioritizing in that moment. When I'm at work, I'm fully committed to my work as a vice principal. From the time I walk in to the time I leave, there's no interruptions. That's the focus. The minute I walk out, it's all about ministry. You know, the minute I walk out. And I can't say that it's not about ministry at work, you know. It's a different type of ministry. But when I walk out, you know, it's text messages from my church family. It's calling about, you know, arranging the next conference, the next thing we have to do, what we're going to do for Bible study. And it's a lot of late night studying. You know, my dream is to eventually work myself out of my job. And so it comes with a lot of late night studying. You know, oftentimes God will wake me up in the middle of the night with a word, and I got to write it down, you know. But I'm working on, I don't call it balance. I'm working on making sure when God tells me what to prioritize that I obey.
And with your children, how has your example sort of transferred into the spiritual being that they're becoming, you know, with the independence?
We've already witnessed you're a comedian. We've already witnessed her.
So I have 2 amazing daughters who honestly love the Lord. I wish I could take 100% credit for them, but the truth of the matter is the only thing I did was, one, try to be a godly example to them of what it really means to be saved. Because when you have church kids and pastors' kids, they see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And just like you would anything your child is exposed to, instead of pretending like it didn't happen or asking them not to remember it, I've chosen to keep it real with them about those kind of things. Like, they're phony prophets. You saw that, right? You absolutely right. And I've made it a point, even when I'm out ministering, to have them with me at times to teach them how to discern what they see and what's right and what's wrong in ministry. And so I haven't covered up the crookedness that sometimes occurs in church, but at the same time I've allowed them to see the healing that takes place. And they're at the laundromat takeovers, they're in the community when we do different activities, and they see the difference it makes. They've been brought to tears by some of the things we've done at our church, from paying down payments to homes to debt-free December, where you can turn in your bill and we pay your bill off, and somebody testified that they were about to lose their home and we were able to bless them. Our kids see that, and when they see it in action, they want to do. I like to say that most of the millennials want to do something, and we want them to listen, but they want to do. So you got to find a way to get them to do it while they're listening, because they got to be moving. And so my girls are amazing, and they are God's gift to me. I sometimes am in awe of what they have become. They are both, you know, scholars, athletes. I don't have to do much discipline and punishment. My youngest makes a look every now and then where I want to kick her in her throat. But other than that, they're pretty, you know, they also have a very loving church family, and I think that matters. You know, so often church people can treat the first family very crazy, you know. But that's not my church's testimony. They love on my kids. You know, sometimes they hanging with my kids when I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm like, what? You calling to speak to them? I was talking to Maya. Maya was tripping yesterday. My daughter does sound. The other one does dance. So they're very involved with what's happening. And honestly, they just love the church. Sometimes they get a little burnt out from the multiple church services. You know, when I got 3 or 4 a day, they like, Mom, we tapping out right here. But for the most part, they can recognize realness and that authenticity. Yeah. And that's what I love, is that somewhere along the line, I wish I could take credit for it, but God taught them how to discern. And I'm real happy about that.
I always think it's beautiful to see God working through children when they recognize stuff, especially when they give you the word back to you. The first scripture I told my 8-year-old when he was younger was, I can do all things through Christ. And the first time I said, I can't do that. Yes, you can, Mommy, because I can do all things through Christ. And
they bring that thing back up. My daughter will come in with the page folded for me.
Oh, really?
You wrote this. Isn't it awful? In the offer, you go to page 9, day 9, go to day 9. I'm like, are you serious? Right. They both have it. It was dedicated to them. So they both have a copy. And at first they were like, do we have to pay for it? I was like, no. So occasionally I'll come in and they'll be reading it. They don't like to admit they read it.
Right, but they do. Good. Well, we're going to take one more last commercial break. And when we come back, we're just going to have some fun questions to ask you.
Yay. Oh, this will be good.
It's been fun already.
Yeah, you know. So we'll be back.
Additional.
Okay, we'll be back after this.
Thank you so much for coming to the Southeast White House. It's a house on a hill for all people. If you're alive and breathing, you come in the front door like most of you did today. We have been here for 22 years, and we have the opportunity to share the love of Jesus, first by allowing you to come in this house, break bread together, and have a conversation about Jesus and his principles. And then what we want to do is encourage you to go back out in the same spirit you received, to share that in the world later today.
We are back. Thank you for staying with us and tuning in. So before the break, we were talking about just some things about being a mother and dealing with children, having this devotional in place. So now we want to just talk about your kids. And so how does your husband feel about being a first man?
You don't like that title. You don't like, it's like, what in the world is a first lady?
I don't like
that's
first
just
lady.
not.
I don't like first lady either.
So you would have to see, you would have to meet my husband. He got J's on and a baseball cap and a polo shirt. He don't want to be called no first man. You know what I mean? He likes Brother Kenny, any of that. They've kind of dubbed him Minister K. Jeezy. I don't know where that came from, but the secret thing is he likes that. Like, he likes that kind of K. Jeezy. Yeah. He is what I call, you know how when you have kids, if they want something from you and they can't get it, they go to the other parent. My church family does that. They don't think I know they do that, but they do that, right? They don't get it. So I'll make a decision about something, mainly as it relates to holiness. I still have a very harsh standard in terms of what I believe should happen in the church. And they'll come along to him, Brother Kenny, you think we could play the Marvin Gaye thing for the couples? Not in the church. Like, stuff like that. It's silly stuff, right? Not major stuff, but they'll go to him and then he'll try to interject for the church. So it's amazing the stuff that people would do. I'm like, who put you up to this? I don't want to say because I don't want to get them in trouble. I'm like, everybody get in trouble. I just want to know who sent you, because I know this ain't come from you. So those kind of things are sometimes funny, but he doesn't prefer to be called both of us. Like, I'm not, if you don't call me pastor, I'm not offended. It's people that can put pastor in front of it and still mean disrespect by their tone. Yeah. So I'm more concerned with just the respect that comes with it. I haven't always been called a woman of God, pastor. I'm just happy to be in the number. So Margo works for me. Kenny works for him, and we're really good with that. Most people say Pastor Margo. Some people will call him Brother Kenny, and he's fine with that. We're not really big into like the title thing. I don't think titles necessarily indicate respect.
I don't think
so.
So what do you do for fun?
Oh gosh, I'm a geek. So for fun, I do stuff like this. Like, I know it sounds weird, but honestly, this kind of stuff is fun for me. Anytime where I get to be around other women and talking about the future is fun. I also love vacationing, of course, and I don't like going to the same place twice. I love to go to anything new. My husband says that I can't go back I don't want to see the same movie again. I don't want to, everything has to be new. You know, new restaurant, new something. I want to go to somewhere I've never been. I love adventure type of stuff. So, you know, bungee jumping, parasailing, you know, any of that kind of stuff. I'm all for that. If it's a lifetime experience, you know, I'm trying to get, I don't want to call it a bucket list. I want to call it my living list. Right. You know, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait till I feel like I'm about to go to do it. So sort of adventurous when it comes to that. When I travel to places, I don't really just want to do the tourist stuff. I want to be with the people. You know, I want to eat their food. Yes. I want to see what their house look like. I want to know what their culture is about. What do y'all do when y'all want to say this? By the time I leave, I know new words. I got a whole nother. So that's kind of, I like to travel. I also like to pay off bills. That's fun.
Oh, okay. Well, I like that.
That's fun. When I get to write that last, I'm done, Jesus. That's fun too.
It is good.
So
There is joy in that.
Yeah,
Liberating.
right?
So what would you say to your young self, your young ministry self, if you were starting all over again?
Embrace who you are and don't try to be somebody else. I went through a phase in ministry where I tried to preach like everybody else. Because I started off a teacher and then a preacher. I couldn't help myself that the teaching part of me slid into the preaching part of me. And for a long time, I wanted to hoop and modulate.
Oh, yeah.
I did. I wanted to. And God, He's coming back.
Got something in your throat.
I wanted to do it. And I mean, I ain't gonna lie, it's times where I have been, I feel like, used in that way, but it's not my normal style. I also wanted to talk like this when I spoke so that I could hear all the sounds.
Enunciate.
And I tried it. And so all of these different things, I went through what I call a Juanita Bynum phase, where I wanted to be Juanita. And I went, you know, just different things, you know. And I remember when God started saying, I've assigned you to a particular group of people and they need your authentic self to be used by me 100%.
Oh, wow.
And I gradually got delivered. It wasn't overnight, you know, from wanting to be like anybody else. And now I'm probably a little rebellious holding on to what God has given me. So even when people try, you know, to speak churchanese or any of those things, I can't do that with you because I'm protecting that authenticity with all that I have. And so oftentimes, even when I know that, you know, maybe everybody else is gonna have on a black suit, I gotta wear a purple one because I'm trying to break myself out of this mindset of blending and always wanting to fit. And it's an uncomfortable place, even with ministry. You know, I get pastors that say, oh, it's been 3 years. What your numbers looking like? And I'm like, what numbers are you talking about? What numbers? How many people you got? I'm like, oh, we don't measure growth by quantity. We measure it by the amount of things that people do when they go.
That's right.
So if you go around and ask my members what are they doing with their life, they got a whole lot of stuff they can tell you. And to me, that fruit is what matters. And so I think I would tell my younger self, just be authentically you and be okay with it. And probably like eat less carbs. Like seriously, y'all, I would say that. I would tell them to eat less carbs. Don't get in the habit of eating those carbs. It's not a good look. You know, I would say that. Get a skincare regimen. Use eye cream early because it's gonna happen to you. Yes, you.
All right.
You're gonna need it too.
True.
That was just a few funny things.
I love that. Now, oh wow, it's almost time. But if they made a documentary about your life, what would be your favorite scene?
Oh my God, a documentary about my life. What would be my favorite scene?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Would it be PG? Would it be PG?
It definitely would, because anything that's my favorite is going to be probably, it's going to sound weird, but the day I was crowned Miss University of Maryland Eastern Shore, when I was campus queen, because that was the first day I realized that it was a conflict between how I saw me and how people saw me.
Wow.
It's like I'm standing on this stage, they give me this thing, I'm getting the flowers, they putting this banner on me, and everybody stand out there cheering, and I thought I was the ugliest, most unattractive, probably, you know, least likely, like it didn't make sense to me. And I think I put up a persona to people where they thought that I believed in myself, but I really didn't. And that day forced me to deal with some things internally. And it started that day, but It took a long time to finally get.
Wow.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. We so enjoy having you here.
I enjoy being here. Bring me back soon.
You come on.
We got more we could talk about.
You gotta bring hubby back now.
Oh, Lord, Jesus, don't give him no
What's
mic.
his name, Pastor G? What do they call him?
KGZ.
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 You have your open invitation, KGZ.
The coffee and my cream.
All
right.
All right. Did anybody else have another question before we close out? Anybody?
I do have
What you
one
think?
I do have a question to ask you.
Yes.
You're successful, which means other ministries want to be a part of what you're doing. How do you figure out who to say yes to and who to say no to? And the reason I'm asking is because we are surrounded where I minister. We get people all the time that want to hook up with us. We want to do this. We want to partner, and we're always saying, let's wait. Think about this. Just be prayerful because this looks good. It looks like something that would be compatible to what we're doing, but actually, it's not. And how do you keep from walking alongside people that don't have the same mindset that you do, even though they're looking good though?
So 2 things. One, I ask people to always tell me their why, not the what. Again, it goes back to that heart and hand situation. Because a lot of people do stuff, but what's your motive behind it? So I try to get to the root of people's motives. Why do you do what you do? What is your thought process? What is your purpose? All of that. Because that needs to be aligned. But 2, I make people put stuff in writing. Which usually causes them to not come back.
Yes.
When you say, can you write me a proposal on that? I like to see a detailed plan on how you, because if you haven't already written it, it's just an idea.
Right.
Everybody's got an idea.
Right.
I'm more interested in people who have planned out something and really have. So between those 2 things, figuring out what people's heart really is for something, their why, what their purpose is, what makes them passionate behind it. And I feel like I'm a good reader of passion. Right?
Yes.
It's one of the things that I honestly wish was in teacher evaluations, because we can't grade passion, but it matters, when somebody's passionate about it. And if you let people talk long enough,
They'll tell on themselves.
they'll tell why they're doing what they're doing. In fact, a lot of people who want to partner with us, they'll talk and they sound like they're about this God agenda and this kingdom agenda. And then when they start talking about where the ticket price and we need to charge because we need to make back a profit, you're not in the same. That's not what we're doing. And that shows itself the more they talk. But also when you ask them to put it in writing, a lot of people don't have a plan. They just talking good.
Some ideas. Can you tell us again where your church is? In case someone
Okay,
wants to come?
so the Remnant of Hope International Church is 2400 Route 4, or you could call it Solomon's Island Road, Prince Frederick, Maryland. And if you put in South Solomon's Island Road, you're more likely to find it. You can also follow me at Margo Gross on Facebook. You can follow the church at the Remnant of Hope International Church on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram at Margo_Medina. And in all of those places, you will see the church's information.
I love it. I love it.
We also have an app that you can download, the Remnant of Hope International Church app. If you type in ROHIC on any Android and Apple application, you can find it, download it. It'll give you all of our events,
Do that
our
commercial.
information. It'll tell you the
So you
purpose
can
and
guess
the work
it.
of our church. And so before you come, you can know a little bit about us.
Yes.
I love it.
We know
I love it too.
Love it. We definitely have to have you back.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We are getting ready to close out the segment, and we always encourage our listeners, and I know you've probably heard it before, and you can read it here.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Discover
your value, access your voice, and move in victory.
on AWIC TV. The push. You got your backup singers. That's your theme music.
Push.
Push it good.
Had to happen.
Thank you for tuning in to AWIC TV Experience It, with real women discussing real issues and giving real answers. Join us again next Sunday at 8:30 p.m. and follow us on all of our social media platforms. And remember, to discover your value, access your voice.